No, Prissy, go ahead. Sorry, I totally forgot. You're supposed to do that. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of DM1. Today, we have
Oh,
a very exciting topic to talk about.
okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know if that sounds better or when it sounds better when I do it. Like, so that would it be disturbing your ears? Probably all these years you'll be going like, ah, what's that guy doing? And then you falling in love with Prissy doing the intro, and so. We don't want to assume, and so just let us know if you prefer Prissy to be doing the intro or you prefer myself doing the intro.
Take over your thing.
Yeah, so um, Prissy has done that already, so I can. So, welcome to another episode of The Evan. And we're excited to come your way this morning, or it might be afternoon or evening, where you are. We believe that you would really be enthused, amazed. No, maybe amazed is not a word. Enthused or excited about this episode. So let us know what you think when you're online. And again, we've said that we want to be very intentional about stuff this year. And so if you think this is a share-worthy video, go ahead, share it. I mean, you don't pay. The last I checked, you don't pay anything to just share. Hit the share button, and you can react to it. You can put a comment out there, and let us know how we could be better at whatever we're doing. And so, again, when you come online, let us know, and then we'll let you join in the discussion. Now, let's consider a very ideal world where there is no external influence in your marriage. You just get married and you stay on an island with yourself and your spouse and your kids, and you live happily ever after. Said no one. It doesn't happen. We in a society, and so you would expect that you have friends, you have families, you have work colleagues, acquaintances here and there who would always have some sort of impact in your relationship. And so what we want to discuss today is how you could still have everyone around in the
Sure.
in the picture, but not have them influence your relationships negatively. And so, again, you have situations where, like, you are, especially in a collectivist world, where like everyone is family and people can come around and be family, just be family. You would always have more than you and your spouse and your kids around in a particular setting. Prissy, tell me, how how do we practically get have everyone around but not necessarily have everyone influence in our relationships?
Okay, so I'll use an example with the background we are coming from.
Yep.
So, in Africa, sometimes you have family living with you, or you are living
Right.
with family. So you could be living in a family house as a married couple,
Yeah.
or you could be living on your own and have family members living with you.
Right.
It could be a sibling, it could be a cousin, it could be an in-law living with you. And in such a situation, you should be able to have set boundaries, or you should be able to have your privacy even when they are living with you. So I think that's also a way that you can have them not influence you negatively, or um, be a third party in your marriage. Yeah.
Okay, but how do you successfully do that without appearing to be unfriendly or appearing to be some way? 'Cause,
Okay.
yeah.
So I don't know, but for me, at a point we're living with family, we're living with people who were not family. One of the boundaries was that you cannot just barge into our bedroom.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So it's not even just bad. You can't come uninvited.
Right.
Unless maybe I ask you to go get something for me from my bedroom, but you cannot come to my bedroom.
Right. So basically what Prissy is saying is that unfortunately, do I say unfortunately? Unfortunately, because we live in a society and usually in our settings, you can't just have, especially in Africa, but there is someone who would always, or most times, be staying with you for support or something. And so you would still need to create privacy within that chaos or that community living, let me call it that way. Chaos might not be a good word. So you can still have 7 people living in the same setting, but you should still find a way to create some sort of privacy for you guys. Hey, Courage, good to have you. And so one of the ways you can do that is that at least a place like your bedroom should be your private space, unless you have someone who helps with cleaning the place. And even that, I mean, the person cannot just come in unannounced. It would be more like, okay, a scheduled time when you can actually go out there to clean or whatever. So within all the community setting and community living, you still have to create some sort of privacy when it comes to your bedroom, for example. So that is more like the physical boundaries you set in. But beyond the physical, I think one other thing you could create is think about it. Let's say that you have your mother-in-law staying with you, or you have your sister-in-law, or your anything in law, to just put anywhere there in law, right? And you have a situation where like you want to pick a discussion, you pick something and you're discussing, and the person unannounced just joins the conversation. This is something that should be shouldn't be the norm. The person can only join that conversation if the person is invited, right? So that boundary should also be very clear, right? And so it could be your mom, and you see, till we are strong enough to not allow familiarity to set in, we will not have a certain level of privacy, right? And so you could love your mom to the moon and back, you could love your sister to the moon and back, or whatever, but the boundaries should be very clear that, hey, if I'm having a discussion with my spouse and you've not been invited into it, please don't. And it might sound stern, and especially in our setting, it might even sound disrespectful, right? But these are the basics. If you can't really set those boundaries, don't expect not to be disrespected, right? And so, and the best way to go about it, for example, is if it is my family, right? Extend when I say family, because primarily it is you and your spouse being the family, right? But if your external family, say from my side, is the one that is almost barging or intruding into a discussion or conversation unannounced, then I have to do the boundary setting, right? And if it's your spouse, then your spouse has to go out there and then speak to whoever is involved to actually set the boundaries, so that it wouldn't be, it's easier for you to have those difficult discussions with your external family as compared to your spouse doing it, like cross discussing it. And so say you're having a discussion and my mom comes in and wants to engage without being invited, then it might not even be there then, right? Try to find a nice way to brush it off, and then afterwards have a very serious discussion in there. Because you see, when it's easier, there is this saying out there that the fewer the merrier, right? And three is a crowd, blah, blah, blah. You see, it's easier to handle a situation when there are fewer stakeholders than when you have multiple stakeholders you have to deal with. What I mean is that if there is a two-way disagreement between you and your spouse, it's actually easier to get two of you to agree than if there is a three-way or five-way disagreement and you have to get everyone to agree and come to a consensus or whatever. And so try as much as possible, even within the community setting or the collectivist culture and all, to reduce the number of people or the number of mouths that, or the number of influences that you have on your relationship. And Prissy, what other type of boundary do you think we can set?
And so I feel that also aside the external factors barging in, sometimes it is from within. Okay. So within the two people, if you are the type that would always go out and complain to external people about issues at home, then what you are actually doing is inviting outsiders into the relationship. So it is not always outsiders coming in. So you could be the type that would run to family anytime you have issues with. It could be also not family, but maybe you run to your pastor instead of discussing the issue with your spouse first. You can be the person running to a friend instead of discussing the issue with your friend. And sometimes people do it in such a way that they are not going to the people to help them even solve the issue, but they just want to go and talk about it.
Right.
And that is when it becomes a bit complicated or dicey. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So basically what you're saying is that sometimes it's not like the people introduce themselves unannounced, but we actually sometimes go bring them in, go invite them in to come add their opinions and their thoughts, and that could also be an issue. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And so as much as possible, and again, sometimes it sounds very cheeky to say this, but as much as possible, resolve things amongst yourselves. Like, you are two grown adults who say you want to marry, right? You should be grown enough to at least handle 80%. Let me be very generous today. It looks like, yeah, today is a very generous. I'll be saying like 99% and all. At least you should be smart or matured enough to be handling like 80% of all issues that crop up. And you see, it's not like I was telling someone, it's not like when you are married, you should have issues every day, and then there will be little drops of no issue days. Marriage should be no issue days with drops of issue days. You get what I mean? So the issues shouldn't be the norm. So I don't see why, if you say in a year 365 days, 5 of those days are heated days, you have issues and all. I don't see why, if you've lived 360 days without issues, you shouldn't be able to come together and resolve those, right? And so really, we should be matured and strong up there enough not to be inviting external influences here and there. Because this is what I think. You see, most of the issues that crop up in marriage, right, have roots in other issues. What I mean is that a spouse can get angry about something, and it's not necessarily that very thing the spouse is angry about. There are other things that have happened already that the spouse is angry about. And so if you just bring in an external influence for the person to have the true background to resolve the issue amicably, it means you have to give the background, everything that has happened. Oh, and even this day, and this happened, and that happened. What you are actually doing is you just expose it, and your spouse, more likely than not, will go like, oh, all these things, and instead of your spouse coming to the table to really get issues resolved, your spouse will go thinking, so all along these have been issues and all. And so you see, you do yourself a great disservice by not really being up to it and trying to resolve issues yourself. So what we've said so far is that apart from creating physical boundaries, right, and saying that, hey, although you here in the same home under the same roof with me, like someone who is not your spouse, at least for this room, this place, it is our private space. Don't come here uninvited. Then number two, we've said that when it comes to discussions, you're trying to have discussions and all, till someone is invited, don't come in. And then Prissy just said that when it comes to inviting people as well, we should be very worried. We shouldn't just go out there and maybe consciously or unconsciously invite people into settings. And I also think that there is a way you can have a logical boundary, right? And this is what I mean. For us, as husband and wife, there are things that and Prissy sometimes naturally wouldn't be giving to this, but there are times that I want us to go out to eat or something, and I consciously make us leave the kids at home. Like, being a woman and having that nurturing spirit, having all that love and everything, Prissy might want to always have them around. Oh, we eating something, okay, eat some. There are times that you have to consciously make time for just the both of you, the two of you, right? And so in a community setting where you are somewhere, you live with your mom, your dad, or you live with your siblings and all, you should also consciously make time for just the both of you. It's not a situation like, oh, we're going to buy something for ourselves. Oh, but what about this person living with us? We're going to have a time out, like eat out or something. It is not always, and I'm not saying that always go out and leave everyone else. There are times that everyone comes around with you, but there should be those moments where it's just your moments. Like, so in all that, you're still trying to create that boundary and still have marriage between the two of you, even within all that community setting. So go out there, go shopping or always try to have a marriage that only involves the both of you. Yeah. What do you think about that?
You also mentioned something about so sometimes even the third persons could be your children.
Correct.
For those those who have adult children.
Absolutely.
And maybe you have a misunderstanding with your spouse. You shouldn't make your kids pick sides. It is very wrong. Correct. They shouldn't be the one you go to and complain to about the spouse doing this. I've seen a lot of adult children having to put up with parents always wanting kids to choose sides.
Right.
It is wrong. Try and resolve issues with, and in fact, your children shouldn't even be privy to your personal issues.
Yeah.
They, in as much as they are part of your family, they are also by themselves. And sometimes the things we do can affect them.
Right.
So if you are always having issues and then you want your kids to be judges or whatever, it can go on to affect them in their prospective marriages.
Yeah.
So let's try as much as possible not to have the kids being involved in so most of the times it's even good to even if they are home and you have issues and you want to resolve, find a private time or space when they are not around and resolve it.
Right.
Don't include them in your issues. It's very wrong.
That's a very, very good point. That's a very, very good point. So there is a tendency, I mean, we are not that old enough to say like we have 20-year-old kids or what have you, but you have situations where like your parents will try to draw you into their argument to gain points and to appear as the ones that are trying to make it right, and the other spouse is the one that is the devil and trying to always causing trouble, right? So your kids could even end up being the third party that we talking about, and that is not healthy, of course. If you have done so well to be married till your kids are grown, that is something to be celebrated. That is something your kids should be able to continue learning from. It shouldn't be a situation where it's like, oh, the only reason we still married is because I have tried to contain all these things, yeah, and then and your mom or your dad has always been the one causing the troubles and all. So always try within the setting of having not just the two of you, but other people, wherever they come from, always try to have your privacy in there. I mean, your what do you call it? Your secluded space, whether logically or physically or whatever, so that you can still feel married around that. Now, in the Ghanaian setting, for example, where you have compound houses, it could be a real
struggle,
disastrous
yes.
setting to find yourself in, right? Because when I was growing up, like very young, I was lucky enough to be in a compound house, right? And you see, it is such that even what you eat, sometimes the other family, I don't want to say have a say in it, but it's influenced by so many factors.
There's
right?
More of a tendency to
impress people. Yeah, right. So it's like, oh, that other family is taking maybe cooking this, so you have to also be close enough, and you have to be. So hey, these are real things, right? And because in my case, there were times when you prepare food and the other family's kid is just sitting there looking at you, and so you would have to feed them. And so it will be a situation where you are really hot and like you don't have meat in your whatever, but you have to try to get meat in there so that they wouldn't go say that, oh, but you guys even eat without meat. Like it's a very complicated web, right? And these are the practicalities of it. But in all these, you should be able to have a real, what do you call it, marriage out of the whole thing. Like, don't let the pressures get to you so much because you have people out there to impress. Yeah, okay. You wanted to say something?
I wanted to ask a question. So now we've spoken about having privacy.
Yeah.
But let's say you are an individual and you have somebody who is married coming to you to complain about their spouse. How do you handle it? Because many a times I've had people come with issues and you are trying to, when they come, they try to make their point like they are the right ones and all that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might not always be the case.
Yeah.
Right? how do you handle them and how do you stop them from coming to you?
Right. So it's always in a court setting. Yeah, I mean, if you've been to the court before, I had the nice experience of being there one time because we were trying to do an appeal for a friend who had landed in trouble, blah, blah, blah. It is always nice, it is always convincing to hear the person making their case for the first time, like the one who has the first opportunity to put their case across. It sounds so convincing. Then you go like, what? But why did this person do this? But why did it? Till it is time for cross-examination. Then you go like, oh, it wasn't what I was thinking, right? Now, people always have that tendency to put their case across, to sound like, yeah, they are the ones really doing something right and the other person is doing something wrong. If you are in the situation and it looks like, okay, people trying to come across to you, my first approach would be trying to, okay, this thing, don't you think if you can really sit with your spouse and discuss this, it would be resolved? Now, most people who speak to me will feel that even without hearing their spouses, I'm trying to make excuses for their spouses. Because usually when someone comes to me talking about the other spouse, I try to play the devil's advocate. That's my natural tendency. I would go like, oh, but don't you think it's because of this? More like trying to speak for the spouse. Because sometimes people don't get the perspective of the other spouse, right? And so they only think about what they are thinking and what they think is the right thing, blah, blah, blah. But if you can also give them a perspective about why the spouse might be behaving the way the spouse is behaving, then it gives them the opportunity to think twice and go like, oh, maybe this might be true. I should have thought about it this way, and then have them to go figure it out, right? Because if you also make yourself a safe haven for people to come to, then it's very likely that always they will be around you trying to put their case together and trying to
yes.
Yeah.
So another thing I have experienced within the past few years is that when people are like
No, but when you say past few years, it makes me feel you are really good. Anyway, that's just by the way. Just
when two people are caught up in such a web and they come to you. For me, recently, I had to tell somebody that what you are doing will cause people to lose respect for you and your spouse.
Okay.
So, because at the end of the day, you might the person will come to you and look nice and all that, and you might even, based on what the person said, you might be giving the person advice. Yeah. And then later they go make up and then they will be like, this person is a bad person. Right. You the one trying to help them out is a bad person. Recently,
because they did not give you the full picture.
Full picture.
Exactly. So,
and then someone said that if you tell me something bad about my spouse and I make up with the person out, my spouse, I'll tell them all that you said. And it's true. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. So in people who are in relationships and especially marriage, when they come to you for advice, you have to be very careful in picking and choosing your words.
Right.
They can come and say, my husband, my wife is killing me, whatsoever. For me, I have taken that stance of, if you do that, people will stop respecting you. Yeah. You think that you are making a case for yourself.
Correct.
First, they will disrespect your spouse.
Right.
But then it will end up disrespecting you.
Right.
So that's me, the best advice I give to people, because sometimes people have issues, they will cause their own issues. They will come to you for you to assist them in resolving it. At the end of the day, they will go and sit somewhere and say that you are the cause of their issues.
Absolutely.
So as third persons, we should try as much as possible also not to intrude too much or engage too much with two people fighting all the time, especially those. There are people who are troublesome, like always fighting.
Yeah. They are meant
ask
for
them,
themselves.
ask them to go and sort out their mess.
Right. So on that wonderful note, we draw down the curtains on today's episode of Dear Man. And Prissy, we say a very big thank you for bringing in your hacks, your nice hacks. And so we'll come your way again next week with yet another episode of Dear Man. But again, go out there. If you think this is share worthy, go out there, hit the share button. You will not be charged for it. You don't pay anything for it. Or hit the like button. Go follow us on our handles. And we would definitely try to also be very intentional about what we bring to you to add value to you. So on that note, we say it's bye-bye for now. Always remember that no two relationships are the same. Thank you and cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.